Paul Perrello, and welcome to the Philly Factor. Well, we really like to party in Philadelphia, don't we? So a celebration 100 years in the making is currently unfolding in Philadelphia on and about the Ben Franklin Parkway. It's the Parkway 100 celebration. It's the centennial of this stretch of boulevard, which is so much more than just a streetscape in Philadelphia. It really is, perhaps some would say, the hub of everything cultural that Philadelphia has to offer, starting perhaps at the Franklin Institute and ending at the end of the Parkway at the beautiful, world-renowned Philadelphia Art Museum. Here to talk about the centennial of the Ben Franklin Parkway, we have, first of all, Sue Hamilton, who is from Parkway 100. Joining Sue is David Brownlee, Parkway historian and author, and David's book is Building the City Beautiful. And I want to welcome you both to our program.
Great to be here.
It's a busy time for both of you. You're with us here on the program right off the kickoff event for the centennial of the Ben Franklin Parkway. David, let me begin with you because a lot of people will hear Benjamin Franklin Parkway. And so if you could define geographically, what area of the city are we exactly talking about when we refer to the Parkway?
Well, the Benjamin Franklin Parkway is the big diagonal boulevard that disrupts the checkerboard plan that William Penn created for the city, cutting through that plan from its very center at City Hall to the northwestward through what was one of the four quarters of Penn's plan, the one that was centered on Logan Square, cutting through that quarter of the city out to the edge of Fairmount Park, to the great hill, Fairmount, on which the Philadelphia Museum of Art now stands. It's about a mile long from City Hall to Fairmount, and what it is essentially a connection between what in the late 19th century was the largest industrial city in the United States and probably the world, and the largest park in the world, Fairmount Park.
So we know of what the Ben Franklin Parkway looks like today, and how for many of us it's a shortcut through town. I hate to say it, but a lot of people will jump on the Ben Franklin Parkway to get out of town and to get out to one of the drives, to get out into Ballackinwood or out to Main Street in Manayunk or Roxborough. But it's so much more than that. So it really is this what has become perhaps the cultural mecca for everything in Philadelphia.
That's true. Well, people love the Parkway for many reasons. For some, it's a nice commute with beautiful scenery, and for others, it is the cultural district for the city. And so we're really excited about bringing some attention to it. It was David who came to the Parkway Council a number of years ago and said that this centennial is something that we really should focus on, and we've been really excited about putting the plans together. It's being coordinated by the Parkway Council, which is an organization that is made up of the museums, the attractions, the religious organizations, the residences, the businesses that are part of the Parkway Museums District. And they've been working very collaboratively together to put this celebration together, and it's more than a year.
It's a 14-month event. Putting something together like this just doesn't happen overnight. It really, you begin the process. You said it was David's idea to sort of celebrate.
Yeah.
And so now that we have this 14-month celebration that's underway, and as I said, it just recently kicked off, we're going to mention the website, which is parkway100.org.
Correct.
And people could go there and find out all of the events that are taking place. But it is celebrating this parcel of property in Philadelphia that looks drastically different today, David, than it did before the Parkway was developed and became known as the Fairmount Parkway, and then ultimately the Ben Franklin Parkway.
That's right. What Philadelphians resolved to do in the years after the Civil War was to connect their city to the park. And to do that ultimately required them to demolish a large part of the newest quadrant of the city, the newest quarter of the city that had recently been developed as a mixed heavy industry and residential neighborhood, really like a lot of the industrial neighborhoods of Philadelphia. If you think of the lower northeast as it was at this time, that's what this district looked like. Most of it had been built since the Civil War. It was heavy industry along the rail line that we're now talking about turning into a park the park that includes the rail park, which runs underground under Callow Hill Street. On the one side, industry located along the rail line, and on the Schuylkill, which was at that time an industrial waterway, another cluster of heavy industry there, and between them, housing for the workers in those industries. And that the city resolved to remove in order, in an astonishing way, to begin to think about what a post-industrial city could be like. Those factories were already beginning to be obsolete, and the future was to be grasped. And the future involved building a boulevard around which the cultural institutions would begin to gather. The leader in this, in terms of the cavalcade of cultural institutions wanting to move in, was the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which was in the 19th century located in what's now the Please Touch Museum in Memorial Hall.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get a site closer to the action.
Now, we have a picture, a before and after picture, and to look at those two pictures side by side, the first picture there, it looks nothing or resembles nothing of what William Penn's Greentown was supposed to look like. I mean, when you think of Penn's plan for Philadelphia, there would be these green areas like Fairmount Park and Rittenhouse Square. And the picture on the left that we're looking at resembles nothing of what Penn's plan was going to be.
Well, that's a picture from about 1909, and it shows just above the middle, you can see Logan Square, and beyond it, glinting a little bit in the sun, is the surface of the water of the Fairmount Reservoir, the reservoir that was on top of Fairmount, where the Art Museum is now. And what you do see is a very densely developed city, because the truth of the matter is that William Penn's vision of a green country town disappeared almost as soon as the settlers arrived.
Really?
They began to build a much denser city than he imagined. He wanted everyone to live in a house with an orchard around it. And,
boy,
and
if you were alive today.
I don't remember many of those in town. And so what you're seeing here really is what an awful lot of industrial Philadelphia looked like at the end of the 19th century. But it was the one part of that industrial city that was right inside that rectangular ideal layout that Penn had created.
Sue, I mentioned at the beginning that we think of the Parkway as this, this district for all of our cultural institutions, religious institutions in some cases, but it also has been home to many mega events over the years. And I'm wondering if, whether it's the Made in America Festival or the Pope coming to celebrate Mass, or it's even our annual tradition of the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Was that the original intent or purpose of the Parkway, or has, just like everything changes, the mission of the Parkway and the organization that oversees the Parkway, your group, has to change with the times also to be relevant today?
Philadelphia Marathon, a lot of the other races and things are all the things that you're talking about. David will tell you, and it's part of his book, talking about building the city beautiful. I think that the Parkway has become a space that people see as a beautiful space. And a lot of those events that want to be located on the Parkway do so because of the scenery and the beautiful vistas that are part of the Parkway. And I think it's another reason why the Parkway has become so special for people, and why I think that the celebration around the centennial of the Parkway is meaningful to not just people who are living here and participating in those events, but visitors from all over the world.
And there was this little old movie back in the 70s that put not only the Art Museum on the map, and hopefully it's the art in the Art Museum that put the Art Museum on the map, but the Rocky movie not only put the Art Museum on the map, but also there's a great shot of him fist pumping in the air, and that great shot of the Ben Franklin Parkway that's behind him. I mean, there's publicity that you can't pay for every time you watch the movie.
We've all done that, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of interesting. The way the celebration has been designed is we're really focusing on four things. There'll be exhibitions, there'll be events, there'll be community conversations and promotions. And part of the community conversations will really focus on the Rocky Steps, which is really interesting. It's part of telling the Parkway story and focusing on the things that exist on the Parkway that are meaningful to people and helping them know a little bit more about that. So Garrett Brown, who is the filmmaker who created the Steadicam, that's part of that movie, and in our opinion is why the Rocky Steps are famous and known as the Rocky Steps.
It's why you can see him
it's
running
why-
up the steps.
Yeah,
because
exactly,
otherwise you'd never
exactly.
be able to
Bouncing
see it.
all over the
Right,
place,
right,
yeah.
And I was all part of that. We're working with the Greater Philadelphia Film Office, and we're bringing him to do a community conversation about the Rocky Steps, which will be happening in the spring, which I think is really exciting, and to learn a little bit more about that particular story. And there's lots of stories on the Parkway to share, and David's going to be part of those community conversations as well.
You mentioned the word community because
Yeah.
oftentimes people don't necessarily think of community as residents who are stakeholders in the whole Parkway celebration and the whole Parkway district, because we think of those cultural institutions, but there are neighborhoods that are adjacent, I mean, real close to the Parkway, and oftentimes we hear about how they might be inconvenienced by an event or two, but it's interesting to know that the community, particularly those folks that live around the Parkway, and the community at large, those people, whether they're in Bridesburg or South Philly, or even out in Manayunk, they take sort of ownership, because who doesn't like running down the Parkway or driving, on the Parkway, or riding their bike on the Parkway? So we have a small community and a much extended community when it comes to the Parkway.
You can live across the street from the Barnes Foundation.
Yeah.
Where else can you do that?
Yeah.
That's really, to think
Yeah.
about the collection that is there, one of the finest collections of Impressionist art in the world, and
Yeah.
you can literally live across the street from it.
Yeah. When the Parkway was envisioned, David, was it always, was the name always going to be the Ben Franklin Parkway? Although Franklin himself is sort of our favorite son, he was born in Boston but lived much of his adult life here and is responsible for so many things here in Philadelphia. But was it the intent to honor Franklin by naming the Parkway after him?
No, it was not. Although some of the foundations that he established in his will did contribute to making the Parkway, or parts of the Parkway in its earliest stages. He was not named as the eventual honoree of the Parkway in the beginning. No, the Parkway really begins as, it was sometimes simply called the Boulevard, sometimes the Parkway, because it was a way to the park,
Right.
as well as being a piece of park that came into the city.
Yeah.
It was its formal name through most of its history, once it began to be seriously contemplated by the city, was the Fairmount Parkway. And it was only after the Franklin Institute opened, containing within it the national monument to Benjamin Franklin, that great marble statue of Franklin that sits underneath the dome, is our national monument to Benjamin Franklin, just as the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson Memorial in Washington are the national monuments to those great leaders. Franklin is memorialized in Philadelphia. And when that opened in 1934, the Parkway was renamed in honor of that. Franklin's national monument being located on the Parkway.
Was the Parkway designed to mimic or created in the likeness of some other place, whether it was here in the United States or perhaps in Europe?
Well, the truth of the matter is the Parkway was imagined and reimagined several times. And in a way, you could say that each one of those imaginings had a reference to someplace else. The one that sticks in people's minds is the relationship between the Parkway and the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And that was explicitly part of the rhetoric of what the Parkway was going to be as the demolitions were nearing completion in 1917, and all of that vacant land was becoming apparent. The Fairmount Park Commission hired the French city planner and landscape architect Jacques Grébert to make recommendations what to do with all this empty space. And he recommended creating parks, creating a wedge of greenery coming into the city, in a way taking the and explicitly saying that it was like the Champs-Élysées. As he began work, he was hired to work in the same season that America entered World War I, and he said explicitly that his design, which imitated the Champs-Élysées in some respects, was a gift of gratitude from France to America. The Champs-Élysées, you probably know, begins in the Tuileries Gardens in greenery and then disappears into the more urbanized part as it gets out to the Arc de Triomphe de l'Étoile.
Yeah.
the Parkway sort of turns that around, and it starts in the more urbanized area near City Hall and ends in the greener vocabulary of forms when you get out towards the Art Museum. But it is Champs-Élysées-ish.
Okay.
And it goes through at Logan Circle. There's a recreation in the two great buildings of the old municipal courts building, which is going to become a hotel, and the Free Library. There's really almost a replica of the two great buildings on the Place de la Concorde in Paris that the Champs-Élysées passes through.
We should mention that the name of your book again is Building the City Beautiful. It is being re-released, or it's back in publishing. So, and I'm sure it has something to do with the centennial of the Parkway. And I can only imagine, just as I sit here and listen to you talk, and so you probably have been on many panels with him, this guy is a walking encyclopedia when it comes to not only the Parkway, but perhaps Philadelphia history.
Yeah, David has a lot of really exciting stories to tell about the Parkway, and that's part of the reason for reissuing the book and making it available, because it was first done in 1989, so it's time for people to have the opportunity to get that again. So we're really excited about that, and he'll be doing a number of community conversations around the information that's in the book, which includes some new information that wasn't in the original.
Quite so, quite so.
That's what I was going to say, 1989 when it was first released. A lot has happened since 1989.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I was delighted when Anne Donencourt asked me to write the book back then, and I was delighted to be invited to add to it now. There are new stories to tell. We have discovered some new things. We've written a bit of history. The Barnes has come to the Parkway, and I've been able to write about that. I've also been able to fill in a couple of the mysterious empty spots in my narrative before. The role played by Julian Abel, the African-American architect, the first black graduate of the University of Pennsylvania's architecture school, who worked for Horace Trumbauer, who was one of the architects of the Art Museum and the architect of the Free Library. What role did Abel play? Well, the book tells you. Abel, just to give a little hint, Abel turns out to have been, in fact, the prominently featured lead architect for the design of the Free Library. And he played an important role, although he was not, I have to say, the man who came up with the ultimate design for the Art Museum in the development of the Art Museum design. And I've been able to piece that together a little bit.
Excellent. We should mention again that if you want more information about the centennial of the Ben Franklin Parkway, you could go online to Parkway100.org, and you can find all the events that are coming up over the next 14 months. This all kicked off just a few weeks ago with the We Are Connected Festival. And Sue, it was a great time, and I think some people are still recovering from the festival. But we should mention that all of these events are family friendly. I mean, they're for the very young, they're for teenagers, college students, those people that were not there 100 years ago. Maybe there are still a few that are around, but I mean, all these events are geared toward really not only educating people about the Parkway, but really celebrating what the Parkway is all about.
Exactly. So for that event, we had 100 free family-friendly activities. The institutions along the Parkway, the museums and the attractions and the other cultural and educational institutions opened their doors for free or pay what you wish admission, and people came and explored the Parkway in really exciting ways and really just enjoyed the pocket parks that were there. They enjoyed visiting the museums. They enjoyed, we had a tango event at the Swan Memorial Fountain, because when the fountain opened in 1924, it opened with a tango event. So we had that really exciting event happening. And we actually created a book, a dot-to-dot coloring book that really spoke to the connections that happen on the Parkway, how we're really trying to promote the Parkway Museums District as a destination together. So there are lots of individual things that you can do, but as a whole, it's a great destination.
Yeah, and this is perhaps a more adult dot-to-dot book, because there are thousands of dots to be connected here. And just a little clue, I don't know, you probably might be able to see that on the camera, but I figured this one out without even putting pen to paper there. But he seems to, well, at one time he was the tallest spot in Philadelphia, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Although they say on the first Comcast building, they put a miniature statue of him up there. Now I'm wondering if they're going to do that with the second Comcast tower. No one's saying just yet, right?
And you know that, and William Penn on City Hall, that was the tallest, he was on top of the tallest building in the world until 1908.
Wow.
So he has been on top of things in more than one way.
Yeah, for sure. What is it that you hope that people take away from this 14-month celebration? I mean, the Parkway is not just a thoroughfare through Philadelphia. It is part of our city. It's it's a living, breathing, stretch of cityscape that has so much to offer for so many people. So, what is it that you hope people take away from this 14-month celebration?
Our hope is that it doesn't end after 14 months. So what we really want people to focus on is the bold civic ideas that led to the creation of the Parkway, and what are the next ideas to implement along the Parkway and to impact what the Parkway is for the future. Yeah. So that's really part of the conversations that are going to be had, and getting people to focus on those things as part of these activities is what we're really hoping to do.
Yeah. David, to go back to the William Penn statue, when they decided, when Willard Rouse decided he was going to build above, I mean, the city was pretty much in an uproar because traditionalists said you can't do that. The feeling was you could never build above Billy Penn. So let's talk about the Parkway. I mean, they're really, given contemporary times, and with the Barnes Foundation moving in, and even that was a debate unto itself as to where do we put,
I remember.
So I mean, has the Parkway really changed all that much in recent history?
I think the Parkway has changed in every era of its history. I think one of its great lessons, and it's really a very cheerful lesson, is that a strong, simple idea is capable of inspiring a loyal and devoted following of people who are committed not just to continuing it as it was before, but helping to make it evolve. The Parkway has served the city in different ways in different periods of time. Its recent use as a festival site is new. Its use as part of the marathon, which we didn't have a marathon before, is new. And frankly, at its beginnings, its use as a center of culture and the arts was new because we didn't have that before either. I do think that the Parkway project, which is a project of more than 100 years now, really, because the thinking about it goes back to the 19th century, is a demonstration of the way that Philadelphians really can get things done and create things that are of enduring usefulness. Yeah.
Sue, in the few minutes that we have left, I know there are many partners that are working on your committee and on this organization to promote the centennial. So I know, and we couldn't mention all of them, but I know there are many people that are involved in the neighborhoods, many of the partners, the businesses, those institutions on the Parkway, and volunteers that will give up a weekend or a week or even more, maybe the next 14 months of their life to make sure that all of these events are executed to the best of their ability.
Yes, absolutely. And we have some really exciting things coming up. At the end of the year, starting December 1st, we have an installation that we're working on called Winter Fountains for the Parkway by artist Jennifer Steinkamp, and we're going to be creating locations where 4 sort of art installations will be part of that, and that'll be up for 3.5 months. So that'll be a large opportunity for people to participate in the way that you're talking about, for volunteers and other people to get involved.
Yeah, oftentimes we don't think of venturing out on the Parkway in the winter, but having seen a picture of those art installations, they look absolutely fabulous, and it's sort of making the Parkway, not just something that we enjoy in the fall and the spring and the summer, but we can enjoy year-round.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the William Penn Foundation was instrumental in helping to bring that together. And the reason is to help people see the Parkway as a destination in the winter and after hours, and that's really what this activity will do. So when the regular fountains get turned off, these winter fountains come on.
Yeah, and there's some sort of bare and stark when you drive down the Parkway, and those fountains are just there, and they're beautiful monuments and pieces of art, but it's it's kind
seasonal.
It's seasonal, and it's like, gee, and now I think it's a way to
these are going to be mesmerizing and absolutely beautiful video installations.
Yeah, absolutely. In the minute we have left, David, do you ever envision a time that someone might go in and rethink the Ben Franklin Parkway?
Oh, I don't have to imagine it. It's happened in every decade of its life.
Really?
And that is, as I was saying, I think that's one of the most encouraging things, one of its most encouraging lessons for us today. Keep rethinking.
Yeah, and it only goes to show that something like the Ben Franklin Parkway is organic, ever evolving, ever changing, ever growing.
But I do think that at the center of it is a simple idea that does need to be preserved, that the public have rights to an access route from the crowded center of the city to the park, that art and culture have a role to play in their lives. There are fundamentals about the Parkway. They're very durable fundamentals. Don't mess with them, but keep rethinking the ways to bring it to life.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating half hour, and I want to thank both of you for coming in. We could go on for hours on end here talking about the Parkway and all the great things about Philadelphia. I want to mention the website again. If you want more information about the centennial of the Ben Franklin Parkway, just go online. It's parkway100.org, and you can find a listing of all the events that are coming up over the next 14 months. Sue and David, I want to thank you both for being with us here on the program.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we'll gladly have you back.
More stories to be told.
I'm sure. I can't wait to hear that. And we'll do it. We'll trust you, me. We'll do it. So I want to thank our guests for being with us again. This is the Philly Factor. My name is Paul Perrello. Thanks so much for being with us. And we just sit there and chit chat while they do the